Hello and welcome to another edition of Insight, the Greater Cleveland Partnerships feature that focuses upon areas of interest to the Greater Cleveland business community. I'm Steve Leutner, and joining me today is Brian Hall, Executive Director for the Greater Cleveland Partnerships Commission on Economic Inclusion. Hi, Brian.
Hi, Steve.
Brian, today you and I are going to be talking about a movement and effort in the Ohio legislature to do away with a long-running law here in the city of Cleveland that requires that a small percentage of people who work on large, publicly funded construction projects actually live in the city of Cleveland. Can we begin this by just a little bit of context, a little bit of background about how that law came to be, and then we'll get into the benefits of it?
Sure. The law in Cleveland is a 20% residency requirement, and it really isn't something that we started. It's something that's been used around the country. I'm familiar with Atlanta, Georgia, where Maynard Jackson, when building the Hartsfield-Atlanta Airport, required local residency and contracting on that project, or said it wouldn't go forward. And many people today credit Maynard Jackson with part of the resurgence of Atlanta by doing so.
And so this was adopted in Cleveland about a dozen years or so ago, something like that?
Yeah, about a dozen years ago, then Council President Frank Jackson and Councilwoman Fannie Lewis, who were two staunch supporters of their wards and of the city and of inclusion of city residents, adopted this. And quite frankly, I remember when the Euclid Corridor was built, the Federal Department of Transportation had some challenge to whether or not Cleveland could use that law. And Council President Frank Jackson stood strong and said, we won't build it without it.
The law, in fact, is dubbed the Fannie Lewis Law to this day, is it not?
That's right, in honor of the councilwoman.
Brian, how has this been good for the city of Cleveland in your estimation?
I think it's a simple equation. You employ people within the city who are helping to pay for the projects in the first place with their tax dollars. Those people then return some of those tax dollars in goods and services that they buy, homes, taxes, property taxes, in support of the school system. I think it makes perfect sense. I often wonder why the detractors don't recognize that more economically successful people may eventually be their residents at some time as well, outside the city.
Now this is actually it's a public-private partnership, this agreement, this law, and it enjoys support locally from the Cleveland trades, doesn't it?
We've been fortunate that our Cleveland Building Trades and our Construction Employers Association both back this law. The private sector here at GCP and many corporations feel it's good for our region and that the law is not onerous at all.
There's some detractors elsewhere in the state who argue that this type of law prohibits contractors from hiring the best people. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, I wonder when they make that statement how they know the best people don't exist in the cities like Cleveland, Akron, Dayton, Youngstown, Cincinnati, and Columbus. And it reminds me of the argument that people made about hiring blacks and women some time ago.
Well, the Ohio Senate and the Ohio House have both passed bills that would do away with these types of laws, although it's not final yet. But I know in the weeks and months to come that the Greater Cleveland Partnership is going to continue to watch this very, very closely.
Yes, we have a public-private sector effort that is opposed to this, and will continue to be so.
And thanks for watching another edition of Insight. In the weeks and months ahead, we'll be talking about more issues of interest to the Greater Cleveland business community.